City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our August 6th City Council study session. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Dodge.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Escobar.
Here.
Councilmember Sowers.
Here.
Councilmember Leidy.
Here.
Councilmember Downing. Here. Councilmember Brown. Councilmember Whitman. Here. Councilmember Duran-Mollica. Here. Councilmember Wilford. Here.
Thank you. And our first item tonight is the trash collection ordinance amendment discussion.
Okay. This is Nate Hases, who is the acting operations manager in my stead. So he has a presentation to go through, and then we'll have some conversation about what we want to do as far as the mattresses. And we'd like to keep the discussion to the mattresses and what we're doing for that part of the ordinance, because we know there's a bigger issue that we want to discuss at some point. So we'll try to stay on track with that. But if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Go ahead, Nate.
So right off the bat, I'll apologize for the template. I was told we have one for standard presentations, and I did not get that till after I submitted, so I apologize for that right off the bat. Again, I'm Nate Hases. I'm the interim operations manager for the city of Northglenn. Today I'll be talking about the trash ordinance, in particular the mattresses. So just quick background, we have two landfills that we use. The primary is Republic Landfill on Tower Road, and the secondary is Erie Landfill. And before July 1st, we took our mattresses to the Erie Landfill because there's no charge, and Republic charged $20 a mattress, bed, box springs, which I'll refer to as items throughout this presentation. So after July 1st, Erie started charging $5 an item, and this is a very important concept, at a minimum of $100. So if we take one mattress up there, they're charging us $100, and we cannot take wet mattresses to the landfill, so that makes it difficult to store them on site. So it's not like we could just hold on to 20 mattresses, take them up there. If it rains again, they won't accept them. So currently the sanitation department picks up mattresses through our ordinance via special pickups. There's no charge for up to two special pickups per resident per year. There's no charge, and we will allow up to 10 items. So that's potentially 20 mattresses for a resident in a year that we will pick up. Since July 1st, we have picked up 119 mattresses as of July 31st of this month. We are on a yearly average since 2016 of 1,500 mattresses, about 125 mattresses a month, and we are continuing that average this year as well. One of the items we were asked to do is to use comparative data for other municipalities. Again, this is specific to mattresses only. We reached out to Loveland, Longmont, Thornton, Northglenn, and I put Commerce City on here. They use waste management, and I actually worked for Commerce City when they went to waste management in 2005, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. So Loveland, as you can see, they charge kind of varying dollar amount on the size of mattress, depending on size, and they have a $15 collection fee. So again, when it says items, that is one mattress, one box spring, or one bed item. Longmont, 1 to 2 items, they'll charge $65. Over that's $75, and they will not accept more than 3 items. Thornton, there's a $65 minimum charge, and it's not current for this year, but starting next year, they will charge a $20 to $30 diversion fee, and that is because they use the Springback Colorado recycling program, which I'll go into more detail in a minute, but that is something that'll be added to it in 2019. Commerce City, again, they use waste management. They allow up to 5 items per year, but again, that is kind of its own animal with Waste Management. It's contracted out. They started in 2015 at $1.5 million per year, and it's increased 7.3% each year for a total cost of $1.9 million this year. And I can tell you the customer service that first few months was an absolute nightmare when they switched to that program, and that is something that Keith and his staff have done an amazing job with the customer service and the program they give the residents of this city. And then Northglenn. We do not charge for up to 20 items. Again, two special pickups per resident per year, up to 10 items. And then again, you can see the chart for other kind of benefits there. Thornton is the only one that we know of that recycles, and again, they utilize the Colorado Springback program, which I believe I'll talk about now. Yep. So the city of Thornton, they use Colorado Springback, and what that is, it's a mattress recycling program where they will actually bring a semi-trailer to our facility that will hold approximately 120 to 150 mattresses at one time. There's a $125 monthly rental fee for the trailer, and that is charged, bi-monthly. What Thornton does is they charge $25 to any resident who brings a mattress to their facility, and that covers the $15 cost that Springback charges Thornton per item. So that's just, again, that covers that fee, and then also the monthly rental fee for each mattress that's brought to Thornton. Adam, who runs the environmental services with Thornton, has really good things to say about the program. Chris Conley kind of runs the program for Colorado Springback, and they've used pilot programs for other cities, and they've had a tremendous amount of success filling the trailer. And again, we picked up 119 mattresses last month, so that would be one semi-trailer that we fill. And it's there's no contract, so it's a month. We can go month to month with Springback, having the trailer on site. They also provide, Thornton provides on their website a phone number, a website to contact Springback directly, which is another option for residents. So moving forward, as it concerns to the city of Northglenn and our program, there are a few options that I'll discuss right now. First option that I see is to piggyback off of the Thornton model and bring a semi-trailer to the M&O facility where we could provide multiple options for residents in disposing of mattresses. For residents who would bring a mattress to the facility, I think we would match the Thornton model of charging $25 if a resident brings an item to the facility. The second option would be, again, continuing our special pickup program where we pick the mattresses up at the grappler. For that, again, we'll kind of use a combination of the different municipalities where we'll follow the 1 to 2 items. We'll charge $65 and then $20 for each additional item. Also, again, we'll provide information for residents where if they would rather contact Springback directly to ensure that mattress is recycled, they'll be able to do that. Springback charges for our area is $25 for the pickup fee, and then $20 per item for them to pick up the mattress at a resident's home. Again, the nice thing about this is this will also meet the sustainability goal that council set for diverting trash from the landfill, because these mattresses would be going to the landfill if not for this program. The second option would be to, again, continue with the special pickups and just charge the same rate that I discussed previously. The first 1 to 2 items would be $65 and then $20 for each additional item, and that would be specific to mattresses only. Again, now those mattresses would be taken to the Republic landfill and not recycled. But again, we would provide information for residents who wanted to reach out to Springback directly to recycle mattresses that way. The third option would be to continue with the current program that we currently roll out for the residents. Again, with the numbers that I provided earlier, about 1,500 mattresses a year, we would be looking at approximately $30,000. That would be a cost to the city per year. And again, with that, we're not charging the residents directly, but the residents that utilize that program would essentially be, the entire population of Northglenn would be subsidizing that program through this cost. So I think that's an important concept to touch on. And again, even with this option, we provide information for Springback to allow residents to reach out to them directly if they choose to do so. Our staff recommendation would be to, again, proceed with option 1. Utilize the Springback trailer at M&O facility, offer the lower rate to residents who want to bring the mattresses to the facility, but still provide a service to pick up mattresses for residents who are not able to bring it to the facility. Again, I think the service that we provide the residents is it is a wonderful service compared with the other municipalities, and that really is a credit to our sanitation supervisor Keith and his staff. The drivers are very professional and they do a really good job, and you know, they do a number of things for the city that goes unnoticed. You know, they provide all the containers for all the special events, 4th of July, Pirate Fest, Magic Fest. They're out there picking it up, and they do a great job doing that. So.
Real quick before we get into questions, I just want to remind everybody about how we fund trash in Northglenn. It's user fee based, and so everybody pays the same per address, and then they pay if they do if they do more than 2 special pickups. Where the Commerce City one, it's charged to their general fund, so that $2 million goes against their general fund.
Oh, any questions, Will?
Yeah.
I didn't think we were talking about that, although I feel like it's an undertone of the presentation. We totally appreciate our staff. I have a question though. It seems like option 1, I thought we were only talking about mattresses,
Yes.
but it looks like we're adding a charge for the special pickup as part of option 1.
So that would be just for mattresses.
Only when mattresses are included.
Okay, that wasn't clear, so.
I apologize for that.
Okay.
It would still be considered a special pickup. There would be no charge if there were no mattress items.
Okay.
So it's only if there are mattresses included in the special pickup.
Okay, I was not clear on that.
Jenny?
So as far as the mattresses that you all have picked up to date, if we're looking at July, how many of those have been special pickups versus people just dumping them?
That 119 would be just for the special pickups. Do we track the illegal dump key?
Yes.
Is that included in that
Since
119?
Since July 1st, I have picked up 10.
Okay.
That would
That have
be-
just been,
I picked up 4 at Northwest Open Space, the
Right.
recycling center, and I picked up 3 out here. And I picked 2 up out on the street on 108th and where they dumped them.
What about the rest of the year? Has that been a similar trend that you've seen, about 10 to 15 mattresses that are being illegally dumped? And most folks are calling for a special pickup?
I think the illegal dump ones, it's kind of random. There's not a set time, and there's more than others. I know
You know, with the west side where we have our recycling.
Open space.
Okay, we get a lot of people out there from Westminster, Broomfield, you know, but we really don't know if those mattresses are coming from Northglenn. So we don't get that many illegally dumped right now. So, like I say, we've had 10 since July 1st.
That's just good context,
Yeah.
and that way we know if folks are calling on a regular basis, if we can count on them to keep calling. And then final, just a clarification, under the comparable municipalities, on the Northglenn section, is it 2 per resident per year, or is it 2 per household?
I think it's household.
Okay.
So it's an error on my part.
Like physical address?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So the 2 per year is they get 2 free pickups if they want multiple item pickups. So right now they can put up to 10 items, but I don't think we count, do we, Keith? We usually just go pick up what's out there.
Well, when they call in, they have to specify what's being picked up
Okay,
right now.
okay.
Okay, and then last question, the $65 that we're looking at for a special pickup under option 1 covers staff time? Or
That
where
would be the
is that?
staff time, the tipping fee at the landfill, and then the mileage to drive there and back.
Okay, so is $65 realistic then if we're having staff going to pick up a mattress and bring it back and put it in the Springback trailer?
As far as covering the entire cost?
Yeah.
It's probably on average because the further you have to go, the more it's gonna be, the longer the time. But if it's just really close to M&O, it's not as much. So what we try to look at is like an average cost for it. It may not cover the whole thing, but we feel like we wanna be competitive with what Thornton's doing. So, I mean, we could look at that, but we would need to have like a year to evaluate what that actual time was to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that, you know, if we're not sending a truck out to a facility and not doing the tipping fee and all of that, that we're not charging more when we don't, if we don't need to.
Yeah, we're not trying to, you know, make money on the program. We just want to cover costs.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Jordan?
Just a bit of clarification. So if they did 1 to 2 items, I'm looking at option 1 for $65, and then is it annual? So beyond that, every time, then it would be an additional $20 if they said multiple times throughout the year, then the mattresses picked up, or is it 65 each time?
It would be 65 each time they had 1 to 2 items, and then additional $10 for, you know, if it was 3 or more. So if they did that, but we're just talking about bed items.
Yeah.
We're not talking about anything else, just the bed items. So if you had a house that said they called us 3 times and they had 2 items each time, it would be 65, 65, 65.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I have a quick question about option 1. We're talking about bringing that spring back thing back to the M&O facility. And I was curious, do you think that, I mean, just kind of looking at this pricing structure, like if I don't have a truck or anything to take it to the M&O facility, then my next option is to call Springback directly because it'd be cheaper. So would we have enough mattresses to fill our need to fill that like rig every
Well, so it's a $125 monthly fee.
Yeah.
Once it's filled, we'll call Springback to come pick it up. So if we get 5 mattresses in a month, we can let it roll over to another month. And again, the $125 fee isn't a substantial cost. So if it's sat for a few months at a time,
We probably want to calculate when is the right time to take it so that we're getting the mattresses out. And do we need maybe a smaller semi? Yeah. But if we're averaging what we're averaging now, I think we would fill it up unless people start. What we really would like is to them call Springback directly. You know, then we're not getting involved and they're just taking care of it. But there are some people that are just going to drop them off.
And again, with the trailer, there's no contract that says it has to stay out there for a set period of time. If after 3 months goes by, we have 10 mattresses, we'll tell them to come pick it up, and then.
Perfect.
Yep.
So it looks like it's cheaper as a resident just to call Springback directly. Can we make sure we communicate that clearly so it's not? Because it took me a while to figure that out. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we'll
late,
want to
but-
work with communications to make sure they understand. Actually, the cheapest is most likely, if you're buying a new bed, is to work with the company that's going to provide your bed and have them take it away, which is what we would like to see everybody do because they recycle them themselves. They probably either go to Springback or back to their own manufacturer, which would be ideal. So that's what we would like to promote, you know, in communication out to the community. Once we get this set, then we would communicate out, here are all your options and what we think are the best.
And just to clarify, the pricing on Springback is actually the same. It's $25 pickup fee plus $20 per item. So if you had 2 items, that would be $65.
Yeah, we're not trying to gouge the
But
residents.
if I have 1 mattress,
Yep. Yeah. If you had
It's
1
$65
mattress, it's cheaper.
for the
Yes,
city.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that's, you know, they got to call and schedule a special pickup as is, and we would make sure that would be presented to a resident who has 1 item immediately. We would make sure they're aware of that.
Marcy, you have a good question.
So when we first started this conversation, we asked if the Northglenn Community Foundation would be interested in doing any type of a voucher program. So it's something that we have been discussing, and the board talked last Tuesday about their interest in being able to do this. One of the things, though, that we would stipulate would be that, and so this might be for you, Jason, is we would need to have the line item be mattress, and so I don't know how that works with it being special pickup. And our reason for that is because we won't pay for special pickups, but we would pay for the mattress. So would it be feasible to be able to have that as a separate line item that would appear?
Yeah, because right now we don't charge for the special pickups if it's 2 or less. So anytime there's a charge, we would be able to track that and know
Okay,
what
so
it
it's
is.
specific to mattress. Okay. So, and then it seemed like we were all on board to make that something that we would vote in contingent upon that, and then we would set in October, when we look at next year's budget, would be when we would be able to set what the funds would be that we can allocate to that. And the process would be they'd fill out a similar application to the grant water program, and we would just pay that directly to the city. So assuming 25, 65, somewhere around there. And then we'd be able to cover it. They would have to meet the same criteria that we do for water. So they our same water criteria, which is the same criteria used in Adams County applications, would have to be met as well.
Okay.
So I think that would be how the voucher program might work.
Okay. So that'd be, and is that for folks that just need help to pay for those kind of things? So that's a voucher program?
So someone who, needs help with that.
Okay.
Go through the same water bill, probably the same. We would just revise the application is what we were saying, so they can indicate, I just want help with water. And part of our reason for that is we don't pay a water bill on a grant program until it is a past due notice. So if someone just wasn't able to pay for the mattress, we would then be able to pay that out of sequence. Otherwise, their bill would have to get past due first. So that's why we'd revise it.
All right. Other questions? All right. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
So we'll bring this for second reading. I'm assuming, based on what we're talking about, that option 1 is the consensus that we'll bring back for council to vote on the 13th.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Okay? Thank you. Thanks, Nate. Thank you, Keith.
Someone's going to do it next. Thank you. Marcy, thank you to the Community Foundation for considering that. That's nice. No, that's good. Okay, the next item tonight is the marijuana tax ballot question. Jason? Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor stated, this is a draft ballot question brought back to you based off the feedback from the last meeting. And we're just looking for feedback. The long language that's all bold at the bottom really is saying that the new marijuana tax would be set at 4% with the opportunity to increase the tax by 1% annually up to a maximum special tax rate of 10%. And the use of the tax would be limited to capital improvements and public facilities. So that's the essence of the question, and we just want to touch base one more time before we move forward and hear your feedback.
Discussion for Jason? Feedback? Okay, well, I wasn't here, so I get to give feedback. So I definitely think that we missed our mark when we first considered marijuana in the city because we were new to it and we didn't know that 2% probably wouldn't be good enough. So I understand wanting to increase it. I do have heartburn, though, over raising it annually without further voter approval. That bothers me. And I understand that it's a sin tax and people will pay it and only the users of the product will pay it. But I also don't like penalizing the businesses. And I know you're not penalized because I know you pass on that fee to your consumers and your consumers will pay it. I understand all of that. I'm just not good about taxing businesses to fund all the city projects and especially one particular business. So I have heartburn over it. Ultimately, it's not my decision or council's decision. It'll be the voters, but I just kind of wanted to share that. So I saw you walk in and I wanted to share that with everybody else. So. Anybody else? Jordan?
Thank you, Brian. I just have a quick question when it comes to by 1% annually up to a maximum special rate of 10%. Is that how they do it in the other municipalities as well? And I did the ballot question by making that stipulation of only 1% annually?
No.
Okay.
That's not how everybody else has
That was part of our discussion that we had because we didn't want to, it just didn't seem right to hey, this year it's 4%, next year it's 10%, 10%. It's not really good for business, so we figured it would be good to at least set a limit on what we would increase it if we did decide to increase it. That was the issue.
Anyone else? I guess you're moving forward with it as written. Thanks, Jason.
All right, thank you.
You're staying there for the proposed 2019 budget presentation.
This doesn't go quite as fast.
Warm up that seat for a while.
Bear with me, I was told to change what's on my screen because that's what shows up on the TV. It's not that. And so let me see if I can figure that out. That's not what I want.
I'm good now.
Yeah, you're good now?
Yeah.
And Tim, I'm hoping that you'll come back when we have this at a regular council meeting and you can share your feedback during public invited to be heard. Thank you.
Still good?
He's not good.
Don't worry about it.
All right,
Just move
we're
on.
moving forward. All right. Okay. So 2019 proposed budget. This is our first crack at bringing it forward to discuss tonight. We have these amazing binders that we are not going through all tonight. So
They are amazing. They're really great. They're very
they are amazing. Thank you. But I will touch on this just really quickly. There's some citywide information behind the red tab. The white tab has our 8 fund summaries. The blue tab has the department summaries, followed by the orange tab with capital improvements and the personnel summary, and then the yellow tab has package requests. So over the next month or so, we'll get through those things. Tonight, that's not the purpose, to get through all of the detail, because we'd be here until tomorrow doing that. And nobody signed up for that tonight. So really what we're going to go through is kind of the budget focus of what staff had as an idea and direction from council. Briefly over the 2019 work plan. That's going to be ongoing, and by the time we kind of adopt the budget in October, there'll probably be modifications to the work plan. I think that was similar to last year. It's kind of a work in progress at budget time, so that'll continue. And then finally, some of the number stuff in the proposed budget. So the budget focus is to maintain excellent levels of service, continue competitive employee compensation, invest in our ongoing operations and maintenance, and then again, enhance our capital improvement program. Those are kind of the main focuses when staff was going through preparing for the 2019 proposed budget. Again, city goals, you're familiar with. The 2019 work plan is really going to be broken down at this time, at least, in enhanced community image, public facilities, operational initiatives, economic development, government policy, and long-range planning. Many of those are from 2014, kind of just an extension and ongoing task that we're doing with that. The enhanced community image, specifically, there's a second phase to our marketing plan, and then the branding and logo implementation. That's a multi-phase approach, so that's going to be ongoing in 2019. Major public facilities, we have large projects, as you are aware, Northwest Open Space, City Hall space assessment. The first phase was completed this year. We can touch on that a little bit more later. And then the Civic Center master plan with the rec center and the infrastructure design will be going on in 2019. Then on operational initiatives in the work plan, there's an enhancement to neighborhood services engagement, the 50th anniversary celebration, which is a huge deal in 2019, and then some investment in our sustainability programs that we've studied in 2018. And then on economic development, Carl's Farm, industrial wayfinding, EPA brownfield grants or key areas that we'll address. And then government policy. Again, in 2019 we'll be focused on the 2020 work plan. There's legislative policy that we're taking care of annually. XL franchise agreement is going to be kicking off in more, a little bit more this fall, and then it'll carry into 2019. Water policy, historic preservation, and traffic calming are all key areas for our government policy. And then on long-range planning, the comprehensive plan update, and then a complete streets ordinance. So hopefully most of these are familiar topics that we've talked about over time, but those are the key areas in the work plan. Again, they'll be worked through over the next couple of months as we talk about budget. So on the budget overview, we'll go over key revenue projections, and then on the major expenditures, we'll key on personnel, capital projects, and then the package requests. Not in detail, but just at a high level. Hopefully that will generate some thoughts or questions, not necessarily for tonight, but maybe at the next meeting when we have the full complement of staff here to kind of talk about their specific areas. So first, city revenues in the proposed budget are $53.3 million for 2019. As you can see, taxes make up the majority of that, $28.4 million. And then user charges and fees, so that includes all the funds, so that's water, sewer, sanitation, and so forth. Makes up a large distribution of the revenues. There's more detail on all of this on page 6 in your binders behind the red tab for when you want to go kind of look at the detail of what makes up each of these areas. Moving on, so the revenue projections, a lot of it's driven by local economy. We have monthly reports on our taxes and how our businesses are doing. Trends and historical data are used. We use a 4-year rolling average, putting more emphasis on the current years statistically to kind of come up with our forecast. And then input from revenue centers if there's fees that are going to increase in different areas or programs. We have discussions as a group to kind of capture all of what's going on throughout the city. We feel that those 3 areas really capture the revenue projection in a good way. So the general government revenue, again, kind of this is just another chart of the pie graph really that breaks out the taxes, licenses, and permits. So you can see where our focus is going to be moving forward on our discussion is going to be on taxes with some conversation regarding user fees. This next slide identifies kind of what makes up taxes. So you can see sales tax, property tax, use tax, food tax, the marijuana sales tax is included, and so on. So you can see this data really shows kind of the growth over the last 5 years, with minor increase projected in 2019, which is not shown here. But you can see there is growth in our tax situation from 13 through 18, and it's starting to slow a little bit as we have new business centers and developments come online. Once those tend to kind of capture their uptick of excitement at the beginning and kind of level out, and we're seeing some of that happen now. Get into more detail. This next slide, these are the 2017 top 50 taxpayers in the city, or tax remitters. The items listed, or the companies in bold, make up the top 10, and then if it's underlined, they're new to the top 50 this year. So this top 50 makes up about 2/3 of our total sales and use tax, and we have about 2,500 businesses in the city, and these 50 make up 2/3 of the sales tax, which is the largest portion of our revenue to operate the city. Does anybody have any questions on taxes? Kind of going quickly. I scared somebody with saying 5 minutes per slide, and there's 53 slides.
That was the plan earlier.
But I don't have, but I can take more than 5 seconds too, so feel free to jump in at any time. And we'll get into more of kind of the projection and where we stand today with sales and use tax specifically. I'm going to go to another fun topic, user fees and charges. This again was studied last year. We implemented a 5-year plan for rate increases. 2018, 6.7% was implemented. That's going to be followed by 2019 and 2020, and then the increase changed to 5.3% in 21 and 2022. So, and again, these are for large infrastructure upgrades, specifically for the sewer plant. Not the plant so much as like getting to the plant with the force main and the pipe that takes it to our sewer plant. This is a slide from last year, just as a reminder of when we did the benchmarking exercise. This is where our rates compared to the surrounding municipalities in 2017. They're in the bottom third, and then by 2021, we'll move kind of into the middle. And again, this is when we reached out to the other communities to identify what their plans were for future increases. So that will be effective January 2019, the next increase.
I have a quick question. Were these graphs shared with residents and posted somewhere? Like on Facebook or something?
Yeah, they were. I actually think that they were in the connection. I
Okay.
think that we made sure that we reached out. But
It's very useful information. It's good.
we'll communicate that again as we get closer to the rate increase taking effect. And so we'll make note of that we're getting include some of this information. It really does tell the story a little bit better that these things cost money. And so
And
kind of
we're
where
happy we're not Erie, so.
yeah, and we are. So so I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on the numbers and the projections on the revenues. But just a quick reminder of the fund structure. We've got 4 governmental funds: the General Fund, Conservation Trust, Community Development Block Grant, and capital projects. And then the enterprise funds: water, wastewater, stormwater, and sanitation. Again, those are to be operated as a business, where the user fees and charges cover the expenditures within those. And that slide is not in your paper. So, but I thought it would give a good reminder of what we have as far as our funds and how they operate. So all funds, this is on the revenue side. Projected sales tax is estimated at 2.5% growth over year-end projections. And right now, through June, we get this update in a financial report. Next week, we're up 2.5%. Right now, it looks really smart because that's what we projected the 2018 forecast on. So that's great. We'll see where we end up. Hopefully that continues to grow and increase over the second half of the year. Last year at this time, we were at 0% growth, and we ended up being a little over 2.5% by the end of the year. So positive trends. Moving forward, we think.
Can you talk a little bit more about the other revenue? I see your last bullet, but just can you go over that again for me?
Yes. I'll I'll jump to that one. So the other revenue, there's a share back being considered now for Carl's Farm development of a Bunker Hill lift station upgrades. So right now, it's ongoing conversation and cost estimates are in the early stages, I would say, are estimated about $2 million. So the city shares about 28% of that. I think even that conversation is ongoing. And I believe that's coming tomorrow to the council next.
Well, we're going to have a conversation tomorrow. I think it comes to council next week.
Okay. So yeah, that would be one-time share back rather than netting it against the total expense. For budgetary purposes, to not overspend a fund, we'll calculate the entire expenditure of $2 million, but then we'll show the offsetting revenue of 1.6 coming in. So that would be one time. Intergovernmental revenues, those can fluctuate based off of one-time grants. It's actually forecasted to be, relatively level. Licenses and permits, that includes things like building permits. We're showing a slight slowdown in that area. Nothing significant, but kind of a slight slowdown. And then user charges and fees, again, with all funds being there, that captures the 6.7% increase on the water and sewer charge in combination. Fines and forfeitures we expect to be flat. And then the other revenue. With interest rates going up, it's a good time for investments with kind of our bond things that we hold till maturity, and so we're getting a little bit of an increase on our yields on that front. Less of a good time to borrow money, so you kind of have two situations happening at the same time, but our other revenue, we're expecting a bump for our investment earnings because of that. So total revenues expected to go about 5%. If we back out that one-time revenue, that ends up being about 2% year over year. So then a little bit more broken out, that was all funds. We'll go through each fund. A lot of these will be redundant because the revenues go through a lot of funds. So these are the revenues that support the ongoing operations of the city, as you can see on the slide. Taxes up about 2% for the year, and then total revenue in the general fund about 2.72%. Inflation projections right now in the Denver metro area are about 3%. So we're being a little bit conservative on that front. I think that there's opportunities to adjust these over the next couple of months as we get more information, especially on the sales tax projections. Sometimes it's hard to make projections this early in the year since we've really only collected 4 or 5 months worth of sales tax this time. So we'll continue to look at that and make adjustments accordingly if we see a trend or something happening that may affect that. That's such a big line that it's important that we kind of keep track and continue to modify that as necessary. So the last couple of years we have not made modifications from our early projections, but that's something that we take a look at regularly. So there may be some changes there coming down the road. Our conservation trust fund, the forecast, it's a little bit lower. There was a one-time grant in 2018. The actual increase for the lottery proceeds, again, these are restricted for parks and recreation purposes and investment. We're projecting that to increase about 4%, and that just is dependent on people playing the lottery. So I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. So I think we're safe to say that that's going to grow. And then in the capital projects fund, again, taxes are identified here. Intergovernmental revenues, again, those are going to change due to unknown grant revenues. And then again, in the other revenue line is $1.7 million of the transfer that's coming in from the general fund. And that again was part of the Civic Campus project funding, is that transfer. Okay, and then in the water fund, the taxes in the water fund are the restricted 0.5% sales tax and 3% food for home consumption tax. So there's restricted for water acquisition, and then debt payments for capital. Specifically, right now it's paying for Stanley Lake pipeline, and that will be paid off in 2022. Will be when that comes off the books. On the wastewater side of things, user charges and fees, again, to be able to fund those large projects, we have an increase that I discussed earlier, and really that goes to pay for our sewer system. Stormwater fee or fund, there's no proposed increase to the $2 a month fee on residential, and then we charge $20 per acre for commercial properties. And there's no proposed increase in the budget for 2019, so that stays relatively flat. And then lastly, in the sanitation fund, no proposed changes. This is used to operate the trash and recycle program. And you can see total revenue, just a slight change. And that's based off of recyclables. That's very hard to predict. So we have a little bit of leeway in the sanitation fund took. For those smaller revenues, is really what's driven. But since we have a base fee of $16, that is generally pretty easy to calculate by how many households we have. So, sales and use tax around inflationary levels, 2.5%. Again, we'll monitor that. Proposed water and sewer fee increase of 6.7%, and then, as you can see, most everything stayed pretty flat through the rest of the revenues. Any questions, or if you go through the rent tab over the weekend, struggling to sleep, we can address those at a later time. So I'm going to touch on expenditures, because that's where we have a little bit more control, and impact is what we're spending our money on. Total city expenditures, so this is all funds, includes all capital projects, is just over $65 million. You can see capital outlay and personnel make up a majority of our spending, so we'll touch on those in a little bit of detail. I did want to mention, I was looking at this earlier today, about 78% of our total spending in the governmental fund, so exclude the water and sewer where those are operational for the utility. But our general government expenditures of those four funds, about 78% is spent on public safety, transportation, recreation, and economic development. So I think a lot of times we talk about work plans and goals and things like that. I think a lot of times you could go back to the budget of what you're spending your money on. Is really, I think, indicative of what sometimes priorities are. And so those four make up a significant amount of what we're planning on for 2019.
Jason, can I ask, can you speak to what might be in the miscellaneous?
So miscellaneous, so economic incentives, judgments and claims are included, and that pretty much makes up the entire amount of that incentives which is just that little blue sliver. So for judgments and claims, we budget about, it's $125,000 for our deductibles on insurance and whatnot. And then economic incentives, our sales tax share back, things that we have. So, yeah. Is there any more questions? Yes.
I feel like this is a really silly question, but what is the contingency? Is that just $100,000 that we put aside every year?
It is.
Okay.
And so the contingency, we set aside $100,000 annually. It's provided by charter, not that specific amount, but that's what we've done historically. So when things come up that cannot have been planned, budgeted, or thought about at the time, it's only at council's direction that money can be used. So. The next slide is just breaking out expenditures by department. More of just a visual representation of, as we go through and talk about department spending. Public Works, they end up with a lot of capital projects, but so it's not necessarily, they are managing those projects, as the rest of the folks of the city are, but there's a lot of capital projects included in that $34.3 million. So we start the budget process off by kind of identifying a baseline budget. And then we've all talked about package requests, and the package requests really get analyzed from a perspective of what spending has happened historically, and where are there justifications and needs for additional spending. So the summary kind of identifies that, if a department has $100, they get $100 next year. Generally that's accurate, but it's also reviewed and analyzed in the budget process by the entire team, really, to see if that 100 can turn into 95. So we're looking all the time at ways to reduce spending by looking at historical information, and then really leaving it to department directors to bring forward justifications and reasons why additional spending funds would be needed for their areas. So that's on the operational side of things. Salaries and benefits, we consider the market survey, internal equity, the competitiveness of Northglenn in the region. And we really tried to look at the overall compensation package. At that time, we have amazing health benefits, and we need to factor that in when we're considering kind of the total compensation of employees. And then capital expenditures are based on the long-term maintenance and needs, overall health, the vision of the community and the council, of what we invest, kind of the bigger ticket items. And it doesn't always have to be bigger ticket items. Some things can be smaller, but they can really, address a need or a concern at the time.
Jason, I have a couple questions there.
Yeah.
So for the package request this year, since we were with an interim city manager, can you tell me how those were vetted this year? Because it seems like in the past, the city manager was kind of the yay or nay vote on a package request. And Rob, you may feel free to.
No, it was more collaborative this year than it has been in the past. We did our usual kind of everybody put in your package requests. This is really the process. This is the process. We'll get them organized, sorted out. We get in a room with the leadership team, and everybody has their opportunity to discuss and teach us, the rest of the group, what the need is and what the plan would be for the additional dollars that they're requesting. We take all of that, we try to layer that and identify how those fit into the work plan, how they fit into the city's overall goals and vision. And after we kind of did that round, we circled back again. And as the finance person, you're always the bearer of the we don't have enough money news to do everything. So we really identified how much money do we have and went through a next round where everyone had the opportunity to prioritize on their own, kind of in front of everybody to say, yeah, these kind of are musts, these are like tos, and these I can find another way to make that happen. So it was a collaborative approach.
Jason and I met with all the directors individually as well afterwards to go through and see what else we could say. Is this really something that needs to go this year? Can it be pushed off for another year? Those kind of things. So it was very collaborative. So it worked out pretty well, I thought.
I'm sure everybody was very happy with the outcomes.
Yeah,
They
I'm
seem
sure.
to be ecstatic.
Yeah,
They'll have voodoo dolls in
Right,
their
yeah.
desks with your name on
Right.
it.
that's the goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
No, I'm just, you know that. So I do have a concern with the salary and benefit budgeting. You know, and I wasn't here for part of the market study stuff, but I listened to all of it. And my concern is in the merit increase, the 2% that is shown in the budget for that. Was 3% brought up for merit increase? And if so, why is it 2%? Since they didn't get anything last year in merit increases, correct?
So merit increases. Yeah, so this is a balance really of market versus merit and how we look at both of those areas. The market increase is compared to the study that you all see.
I get the market increase.
And then the merit increase, I think it's a prioritization of how close to market do we want to move people and positions, and then what funds are available within the budget constraints for things like merit increases, health insurance increases, and whatnot. So the priority, as you can see, we'll skip ahead to this slide on page 35. Maybe it's 34. Page 34. The market increases are capped at 6%, and then the merit increase is capped at 2%.
So, we typically kind of take this year by year, and I'm just wondering if it's time for a bigger discussion on how we deal with the personnel and increases in that. Should there be a set amount that we're doing every year where it's not, you know, well, this one year we don't have enough money so they don't get increases. Somehow, I don't think that's valuing your employees very much. So I think, to me, this is just my thought, that giving somebody something guaranteed every year instead of waiting until we do the market surveys and then we come up with, 2% is what the budget will allow. I'm just not sure that I like that overall, so that's a thought. And then I think when we come back and discuss this more on the 20th, can you tell me what the increase would be if it was 3%? It's not very much, right? I mean, if it's 128,000 at 2%.
64,000.
Yeah.
172,000 total.
To be continued. I just kind of wanted to plant the seed.
I think that we'll touch on that, where that pinches on the sources a little bit later.
And I'm going to argue with you on that too, because I know that you don't want to, that this is going to come from the general fund. Or if we do 3%, if we increase to 3%, it would come from the general fund, right?
Not all of it, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Some of them would be the special funds, right? Would be cover, like
I mean
sanitation.
These are
water would
totals.
cover those.
Yeah, these are totals for.
It just seems like a small amount, and since we did not give that merit increase last year, I personally would like to see that at 3%. So I would like to have a further discussion on that when we talk about the whole budget.
Can I follow up on Carol's point? So and this is more of an HR question that you may or may not know, but is there like a spectrum of like, hey, like you did really awesome this year and like you went above and beyond and you qualify for this category and you get this level increase versus a different one?
Well, currently there is not.
Oh, performance-based.
That's why we need a bigger discussion.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So,
Food for thought.
all right. So on the personnel side, and just jump right in, the proposed budget for 2019 has 0.4 FTE. That's to increase recreation coordinator and recreation customer support specialist to full-time within the budget. I think they've been working hours and overtime already, so this would just really identify them as full-time in the budget, which does have an impact on insurance and things like that, but pretty small increase overall. Again, the market increase capped at 6%, merit increase at 2%, and then the police officer step increase of 48,000. So I did want to say that total police increase, it's not broken out there because the market is included, is $226,000 for police salaries.
Say that sentence again, I'm sorry.
So of that 462,000 for market, our sworn officers are included in that, and they make up $178,000
Of the 462?
Of the 462, yeah. So if you combine that with the 48, it's 226,000 for sworn officers. And they are on the step program. So the officers right now, with the market increase in that range, they'll be at a 4% market increase in addition to what their steps are. So that'll range somewhere between 4% if you're capped out to if you're, depending on the step, it goes up to 14%. So.
Which for me is more backup as to why the general employees should have the 3%. So I'm going to keep saying that.
I will touch on the having the guarantee. That's really challenging, as we know through the recession. That there is not going to be guarantees available always. I mean, sometimes years may be better than others, projections, new sources of revenue. Several years back with the marijuana industry coming on board and new developments. And so then you go into a time of that flattening or recessionary levels. And it's definitely would be ideal to be able to say every year something happens, but being able to make that happen would be, certainly a challenge.
So I'm going to challenge you again on that.
Okay.
Because I'm going to say that there are cities that budget for recessions into the future, and that I know some because they were on the board of the CML with me, and they've actually budgeted for a recession and were still able to give raises accordingly and didn't have to lay off, and more bigger picture stuff.
All right.
Sorry, Heather. I'm just.
No.
I've got some ideas on this that I think we need to change. So.
It's on the list.
Okay. Good. Good.
Yeah, there's no single perfect approach.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I get that. But I think it can be done that you can have the same increases every year.
The next slide just kind of identifies the staffing levels trend over the last several years. The FTE count proposed is 269.49. You can see the increase over time. So a big jump from 2017 to 2018, and then not much proposed in 2019 again. We're looking at basically the same thing, just differently, to capture everyone's visual styles. And this breaks down FTE by function, so you can see the split out of FTE in a picture and numbers. And then the next slide really just breaks out that large category of general government. The history there, you can see pretty stagnant over time. Was there other discussions about the staffing? This is a good time to have that discussion. The next meeting, each department's going to speak individually about kind of their package requests, and we'll tackle some capital improvements. So if there is discussion, direction I mean, we can come back to it when we get all the way through the expenditures and each of the fund summaries too, but I don't want to.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yeah.
On the staffing levels, I didn't see any increases for the police department. And I feel like every time we have the chief in front of us, he's telling us that he needs more officers, or we can't enforce speed limits because we don't have enough officers. We can't enforce fireworks because we don't have enough officers. And so I'm just curious if you requested additional folks and that just didn't quite make the first cut, or if there was some other reason that we're not seeing additional FTE added there.
Yeah, there were three officers requested. Again, balancing out additional staff or compensation really for the ones that are currently here. It's kind of the discussions that were had on that front. So the next big slice of the pie is our capital projects. Each director will be here on the 20th to kind of go over these in more detail, but at a higher level, Rob and I can probably tackle some discussion if you guys have questions on some of the capital projects. Again, mostly to generate some thoughts and just kind of see the perspective of what's included for capital projects. On the Parks and Recreation side, you're familiar with the Greenway Trail replacement. This is kind of an annual ongoing budget to replace the trail segments. The Northwest Open Space Facility improvement of $1.6 million. This is the second phase, or the second step, kind of a long-term plan for that space. Grant funding continues to be ongoing. You will see in the capital improvements, the future phases are not identified as being funded over the next 5 years. The tennis court rehabilitation, I think just in the last month or so, there was some pretty good outreach and video to garner some interest and excitement on the tennis courts. And then Justice Center West Park, I think you guys had recently talked about the concept phase and then going to a design phase, which is the $100,000 that's in the budget. And then again, the project estimate from the concept level was about $3 million, and that's not funded in the next 5-year CIP outlook at this time. And then also Parks and Recreation, the Civic Campus, the master plan, $12.5 million is budgeted. If you remember, we had a plan of $13 million of cash. We'll spend about $500,000 this year, we believe, over the next several months when we get a design firm on board. And then in 2019, we'll continue to cash fund the studies, the design, and some of the infrastructure that we've discussed over the last several years. And then Sensory Park equipment of $250,000. Transportation, Public Works, you can see the investment of those first two items of a little over $1.1 million, $750,000 for residential streets. And then traffic lights, concrete replacement, and then school safety programs of $400,000. So $200,000 of that is for implementation of the studies that were done. If you remember, we're on a study a year, implement the following year. So next year will be the implementation at Global Village and I believe Stookie, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there's $200,000 budgeted for those. The Melody Drive traffic calming is included for $1 million.
Question. Oh, I think it might be your question. Is because we just haven't heard about it in a while, is the Huron fence in the residential street program?
No, but that's in 2018.
It is, okay,
Yeah.
I forgot.
budget.
Yes, for this year.
Are we working on it? Yeah.
Yep, I think we've got bids and all that out. I think they're already being reviewed, so
Yeah.
I just hadn't heard about it.
I can find out when we'll start the project. Amanda's running that project, so we can find out.
And then, in addition to Melody, there were other streets that were identified for traffic calming. Is that all kind of wrapped in and we're just calling it Melody traffic calming?
I do not believe so. I believe that is Melody.
You're what?
I believe that's Melody.
Okay.
Yeah, the other ones are not in that $1 million.
So are they somewhere else and they're just not being highlighted tonight?
I would have to double check on the 5-year CIP. We've had a lot of discussions about how we plan to fund those projects.
Yeah.
There's some availability in the 4 mills that was extended, and I don't know that we've identified beyond 2019 of exactly which pieces are going to be grouped together. So
Livingston and Claude, or and 112th Place. Yeah, 112th, the side street.
And then is any other portion of Connect Northglenn, the bike and mobility striping and stuff going to be included in here?
So, yes, in the residential street program, yeah, they're trying to combine all of those elements into that.
Okay.
Yeah, the Connect Northglenn. Yep.
Thank you.
And then you can see the lift station A and force main, kind of the concept phase and design, $500,000. So that's in the utility fund. And then the Bunker Hill lift station that we talked about earlier, with the revenue coming in, the $400,000 is going to end up being our portion. As further discussions take place, of course, that number is likely to change. And then just a quick recap. We had this slide last year, and I think it's important to identify again as we keep going. Here's our big projects that we have going on: Civic Campus, water and sewer projects, and then the funding sources: the capital projects 0.5% sales tax, the 2% marijuana tax, and the transfer from the general fund will be what either through cash reserves that we have on hand or through ongoing financing to issue debt will be what funds the Civic Campus. And then again, the rate increases that we have planned fund those.
Is it 29 or 25 million on the lift station A and force main? On the capital projects page it says 25 million, and on here it says 29. Is that
Yeah, you know, that
it's going to be somewhere between 25 and 29.
25 and 29, and it actually may be reduced, I think, as we're taking a look at some of the designs. So there's more to come. The initial plan, I think, was conservative to identify kind of some worst case scenarios. And as we get closer, even through 2019, I think we'll refine that number.
By next year, hopefully we'll have a better idea based on what we're going to do for a lift station in force main this year in preparation for it. So.
Any other questions on capital projects? We'll go through each group in more detail, but if there's things that you want to make sure that we bring back, let us know and we'll take note. The next slide, we're going to start going through package requests. Again, this is what each department's going to come through and discuss. So this is more of just visual outline. I can touch on some of the things if you have immediate questions, but I probably won't have all the answers.
The one that jumps out for me is the 50th anniversary. And just wondering, that actually seems low to me, thinking that it's a year-long celebration and that just looking at comparatively what, like the citizen survey is just a little bit cheaper than that. I feel like it should be more. So at some point, will someone describe?
Yes,
what the money's
on the
for?
20th. On the 20th, there'll be more detail.
Kim will be here.
If you want to read ahead on that, behind the yellow tab is the detail.
Please come do that.
Out of,
No, I don't know. Can we add to that if we have bigger ideas, or is that set?
yeah, no, nothing. Nothing is said.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. If as ideas come or you guys have the conversations. One increase that was kind of a mandatory thing almost was the property insurance. We have new buildings and we thought we should insure them. So that's a large portion of that $59,000 that's included there. And then additionally, the court security, they'll have detective, I'm not going to say the word, right? Metal detectors, for lack of a better way to say it. And then you need core security at the new facility. Planning and development, there's the block party trailer to be included. I'll let Brooke touch on the greenhouse gas inventory and the comprehensive plan update on the 20th. Parks and Recreation, you can see a big portion is vehicle replacement. We didn't break out every single vehicle, on the slides, but there's a handful of vehicles and mower replacements included. And then police, our share of ADCOM, North Metro Task Force, and the records terminal has increased, about $115,000 or so. Those, when we're going through package requests, we kind of have a mandatory category, and we determined that those 3 items were mandatory as our share with the IGAs, those agreements. And then $15,000 for protective body armor, and then several vehicle replacements to the tune of $210,000 for police. And then Public Works, again, I'll let the experts speak to standards and specs. And then the water and sewer funds, those things were broken out, are specific to different chemicals and things that they need for the processing. And then a little over $1 million in vehicles, $600,000 of which is 2 trash trucks. So you guys will get lots of fun detail on the 20th on these topics, but you can start formulating your questions for them starting now. And then the next slide, I haven't really looked at how we allocate. We always talk about package requests and how we're spending money and what priorities we have. So this is just the general fund allocation of the package requests that were approved at this time for 2019. So you can see police, public works, parks and recreation, and planning, and all of the departments. But I thought that was a good visual to show where the money is being allocated within the general fund. Then other major expenditures, we talked about the property insurance going up. Utilities, again, we're going to pay the utilities on new facilities. That's the tune of about $150,000. And then motor vehicle fuels, we've identified trends historically, and we're pretty flat on our motor vehicle fuels. So, knock on wood, that will continue.
I have a question about motor vehicles. As we're replacing vehicles, are we looking at trying to remove trucks where we can and get like the smaller little van things that are more fuel efficient, and like looking at those kind of opportunities as they arise?
Yeah, I think that we're going to be looking at that this next year, is try to, how we can consolidate some of the things that we're doing and get better vehicles for the usage that they have. Instead of having each department just kind of pick what they want, we need to have some type of semblance of a process for how we do that, so that we know that we have the right number of vehicles for the right number of people, and making sure the right vehicle for the work that they're going to do. So we're going to start looking at that. The other thing we'd like to look at is being more consistent in the standards that we have, so we don't have 15 different vehicle models. You know, instead of, you have Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, whatever they are, we got one of everything out there, you know. So we'd like to get it to be more standardized, because that would help save money on the parts side as well, and also reduce the training necessary for our mechanics to be able to maintain them. So we're going to start looking at that. It's going to take a long time to get that shifted over, because it's a long process to do that. Jenny?
We did a cost-benefit analysis on starting to move towards buying electric vehicles.
We did.
Is that being reflected in some of the prices for buying new vehicles?
Right now, the cost-benefit analysis showed that we shouldn't do it because it was going to be more expensive, but we're going to look at hybrids and things like that as we go forward for certain types of applications.
So with 3 slides to go, I figured out how to make things better. So I'm going to start over. So summary of the expenditures: personnel increase about a little under 2.5%. Again, capital improvements based on kind of long-term needs. And then the last bullet, which isn't in your packet, unfunded package requests were just over $1 million. We'll see more of that on the 20th. But just some perspective there. Oh, yes. Sorry, I didn't see that.
So on the first bullet point with 0.4 additional FTE, where is that 0.4 FTE coming from?
The recreation coordinator and the recreation customer support specialist.
So per se, we grant the option of having more police officers. That'd be additional. It would be on the 0.4, right?
Oh, FTE. Yeah. So if there's 3.4 FTE.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That 0.4 is just to get the people that are in part-time positions to full-time that we're paying overtime for now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's just the increase for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm like,
And then this next page really puts all of the revenue and expenditures together for all of the funds. We touch on estimated beginning fund balance on the left-hand column, total revenues. In the next column, total expenditures, and then what we have for 2019, I guess surplus or deficit is what we can call it on the slide, and then the projected ending fund balance. So I will touch on the general fund at $513,000 on the next slide. So we're not using operating dollars and ongoing dollars in that 500. We're part of that is $513,000. But on this next slide, these are all of the one-time 2019 projects or surveys that are included. So if we take out the one-time expenditures, that's a surplus of $20,000 in the general fund if we take the 533 less the 513. So these are one-time items that we are allowed to spend on our fund balance on that are included here.
Thank you. Why are we only doing the citizen survey as a one-time expense? Shouldn't it be something that we do every single year so we have something to match the data or be able to make determinations?
Yeah, that would be a discussion if we want to make that an annual thing or every 2 years, or we haven't done one for so long. We were just trying to get it into the budget right now. So yeah, that could end up being an ongoing item. Absolutely. So there thoughts on that? I'm sure there are.
I don't have thoughts on that one, but can I ask a question on the unfunded?
Sure.
So I noticed and I picked up on, Jenny asked about the Connect Northglenn being in the residential street program.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when we come back on the 20th, I just would like clarification, because I thought I saw, and it is on here, Connect Northglenn implementation was an unfunded request. So what was funded in, if it was, in the other? Can we just get clarification?
Oh, yeah, so this $10,000 that was not part of being funded was to be used to leverage, I think, some granting opportunities. I'll have Brooke speak more to that, but so the actual tangible piece is within the residential street program. This is kind of more of the study and planning portion of that. So.
You know, I always kind of focus on the unfunded because these are the things that tend to bite us later when we don't have them in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other one that caught my attention, so hopefully Public Works will talk about this. So we're not funding the biosolids removal. I'm just curious why we would be funding it. So
it's an increase to
we're still going to do
that already exists. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still doing. I think we still had 300,000, or did we do like?
Yeah,
we increased it a little.
I believe there's $300,000, and the increase was. We were listening.
I'm trying to remember what it was because we talked about it doubling it.
I think it was to just increase the processing. So it's a program that exists. So it's not the program
right now
is
we're
not
doing,
going to exist. It exists. It was just an additional investment
speed up
into
the process of removing the biosolids from the lagoons up at the wastewater plant.
And the reason that was not able to be funded is when we look at the 5-year CIP with the large project for the force main lift station, coupled with the planned rate increases, that fund would not be able to support itself with some of those bigger ongoing one-time items.
I have a couple more questions. I hope you'll indulge me since this is my first time going through this process. So when the department heads come and do their department presentations on August 20th, do they speak to some of the unfunded requests at all? Or are they just told not to talk about them at all? I'm just curious.
We focus on what was funded, but if you guys have questions regarding unfunded, absolutely. I mean, those things can be addressed. You know, some of those that we didn't really notate necessarily on some of the unfunded things. Some of those are unfunded because people were able to look at their budget a little deeper, as I talked about when you start off with your $100 and you want $150. Well, we've gone through and identified, well, you have $50 available. We're not going to add more to your budget. Use that money. So not all of it was, I think, not all of those things are vetted before the package requests come in. But as we're going through and trying to make decisions, it gets into a deeper dive on priorities to identify that, can you handle, an extra $6,000 in your $10 million budget? And so.
Okay, that makes sense. And then my other question is, why is the 50-year anniversary in the city manager's budget? I understand we've got the communications director there, but typically doesn't Parks and Rec or like Stephen execute and plan?
What, do we have any idea why it's there, or if that's all of that money specifically just for comms?
Communications is going to be the lead, was identified as the lead on that project, so that's why it's in that budget.
I think we'll work with Stephen and them, but they felt that it was primarily going to be from the communications would lead that. Stephen and those guys will help, but they already have a full slate of everything they're doing, so we just felt it was better to put it in there. It'll probably be transferred to different departments and spent, as needed.
Well, feel free to reach out to me, if you have questions as you're thinking and whatnot over the next couple of weeks before we come back to this, because we could talk about this for hours and hours, and there's so many different ways to kind of slice and explain things that we have to pick kind of one approach. And so we're more than happy to kind of go through more detail or answer any questions that you guys have over the next couple of weeks until we meet again.
Any questions for Jason? Sum it up. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jason.
All right. Thank you.
Discussions. All right. You have anything else, Rob, tonight?
That is it, I think.
All right, we're adjourned.